1 week later, the president says there's still so much to do in Texas to recover from Hurricane Harvey. And another storm gains strength in the Atlantic. Election do-over.
Irregularities affected the integrity of the election.
Kenya's Supreme Court scraps last month's presidential election. We'll tell you why. The Pope's trip to Colombia. The Holy Father is days away from traveling to his native South America. A report from Rome on how this trip is different. And a brighter future.
OB!
A story of hope and inspiration as inner city youth step up to a better life. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, September 1st, 2017. Thanks for joining us for News from a Catholic Perspective. I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. Hurricane Harvey slammed into southeastern Texas 1 week ago. Rescue missions push on with thousands stranded in shelters. The governor of Texas says it'll take years for the state to dig out. More than 72,000 people have been rescued so far. Crews are going door to door to search for survivors. The storm and its aftermath have killed at least 39. Many people in the Lone Star State are praying they'll be able to go back home soon. Others no longer have a place to return. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby joins us from one of the main shelters in downtown Houston, where thousands of flood victims are getting the help they need. Wyatt?
Good evening, Jason. Flood victims, medical personnel, and hundreds of volunteers fill the halls here at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Housing, health, public safety, the biggest concerns in the Houston area right now.
Here inside this shelter and recovery center, flood victims are getting the medical attention they need to survive.
Put your arm right down like that. Now, are you taking any medications on a regular basis?
Donna Labens, a registered paramedic from Minnesota, came to Houston a week ago ahead of the hurricane.
We went on call on Thursday night, packed our bags, and flew out on Friday.
Since then, she's been working around the clock.
We are the medical team in this shelter providing medical care for all of the evacuees in this shelter. So we have a whole setup where they get registered, they come through triage, and we're doing everything we can help people, any way we can help people.
Donna herself is Catholic, which is why she was happy to see a local priest offering communion, a blessing, and a medal of Our Lady to all those looking for spiritual nourishment.
I didn't expect it. It's very well needed. It's very emotional for all of us to, see people in such dire need. So I can't even tell you how happy I was.
Following the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, Catholic churches have been offering their help in a variety of ways, including collecting and distributing essential goods like food and clothes.
We got stuck. They went and helped us to get out of the house, and they took us to a fire station.
Flood victims like Flor Ceballos and her family are grateful for St. Christopher's Church in Houston, who is here in their time of need.
We pick up clothes, wipes for the baby, and they give us hot food.
Helping organize the recovery efforts here at this shelter include the City of Houston and the Red Cross, which is working with Catholic Charities and the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston. But many individual Catholic churches, like St. Christopher's that you saw in that story, took the initiative on their own to set up a collection center and spread the word through social media. Jason?
Wyatt, thank you so much. These stories from Houston have been very, very touching. Thank you very, very much. The White House is calling on Congress for an initial $5.9 billion for Hurricane Harvey relief. Tomorrow, President Trump heads to Texas and Louisiana to survey flood damage. Correspondent Mark Irons reports from the White House tonight. Mark?
Good evening, Jason. President Trump says there is still so much to do to recover from Harvey. The president is giving $1 million of personal money to disaster recovery. And when Congress approves a final relief package, it could rival the $100 billion spent on Hurricane Katrina relief. But it's not all about the money.
We invite all Americans to join us as we continue to pray for those who have lost family members and friends, and for those who are suffering from this great crisis.
The president gave remarks in the Oval Office today, surrounded by evangelical religious leaders and members of faith-based groups. He signed a proclamation establishing Sunday as a day of prayer for those dealing with the aftermath of Harvey. When the signing was over, he bowed his head in prayer led by Baptist pastor Robert Jeffress of Dallas.
We pray for healing for our country. Yes. We pray for physical healing for those who have suffered the devastation from Hurricane Harvey. Father, be with them, provide for their needs. Help us to be the embodiment of Jesus Christ as we minister to them.
Later, the president held a second event in the Oval Office to thank disaster relief organizations helping victims of the hurricane. He was joined by leaders of the Salvation Army, the American Red Cross, and Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. Jason.
Mark, did the president also say when he'll announce the future of the DACA program?
Trump says the announcement is coming soon, possibly over the weekend, on DACA, or deferred action for childhood arrivals. He has wrestled with himself over its future, describing it from the campaign trail as a legal amnesty, but since taking office, he's had a more sympathetic view of the program. DACA gives nearly 800,000 young, undocumented immigrants the chance to stay in the U.S. with renewable work permits. The president is facing political pressure from both parties to keep DACA intact.
And we'll be hearing more about the Catholic reaction to DACA coming up with the president of Catholic University. Thanks, Mark. Catholic Charities USA mobilizes to help hurricane victims. The national headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, just loaded up a new disaster response truck with supplies now bound for Texas. Catholic Charities USA stockpiles box after box
Lift with your legs, Justin.
of urgently needed supplies.
Mosquito repellent and diapers and bleach for cleaning.
All to help Hurricane Harvey victims.
A lot of kind of very basic things that people might not have thought of a whole lot.
Sister Donna Markham, the head of Catholic Charities, says the relief boxes will travel across country, from the charity's national office here in Virginia to Texas, where the devastating storm destroyed homes, schools, and churches. A newly donated truck from Ford will deliver more than supplies.
It is about compassion, and I think it's exactly what Pope Francis refers to as the field hospital.
These items only a small part of a much larger relief effort. Catholic Charities USA will still be there helping with home repair and health care long after the storm has passed.
We're in it for the long haul. We're always in it for the long haul, before, during, and after.
The charity's goal is simple: give help and hope to disaster survivors.
I just want to say thank you to all of the people that have reached out. It's extraordinary.
You can help hurricane victims by giving online at CatholicCharitiesUSA.org, or just check with your parish. The U.S. bishops encourage churches to take up a second collection at Mass either this weekend or the next. And forecasters now warn about a new, potentially disastrous storm. Hurricane Irma is quickly gaining strength far out in the Atlantic, threatening the Caribbean and possibly the U.S. next week. And as Mark said, President Trump is reviewing the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, commonly known as DACA, in place since 2012. The program protects 800,000 young immigrants from deportation. It allows them to work here in the United States with a renewable 2-year permit. And John Garvey, president of the Catholic University of America, joins us now to talk about this issue. Catholic leaders, including the U.S. bishops, have been asking the president to keep DACA in place. Why do you agree with them?
I think it's the right thing to do. These are people who came to the United States through no decision of their own. They're here innocently, and they've been abiding by the laws and working hard. They stand for the things that Americans want: keep families together, work hard, love America.
There are some Catholics, others as well, saying we have to protect the laws of the land, we need to uphold the Constitution. How do you balance that with what you're hearing from the bishops?
You know, there is a point that we should be paying attention to. We do have this notion that the last several administrations have been promoting, that the president's the lawmaker-in-chief, and Congress has a responsibility to act on this, which they have not lived up to. I think Republicans and Democrats alike have been appealing to their bases and not getting along with one another, but I would like to see Congress act.
So Congress acts. What exactly could Congress do?
Congress can solve this whole problem. They can enact comprehensive immigration reform, but at least they can take a first step and make this program of deferred action for childhood arrivals permanent.
You've seen the president's remarks. He said this was a very, very difficult issue for him on the campaign trail. He said it was amnesty. He wanted to get rid of it. You see him wrestling with that as well. How do you think, as Catholics approach this issue, they should wrestle with the issue of law, upholding laws, and also upholding what we're hearing from the Pope and from the bishops and from leaders like yourself?
I think Catholics are not very different from other Americans on this issue. I think Catholics believe Archbishop Gomez has been really eloquent and thoughtful about this. First of all, that America has a right to security, to protect its borders and to have a fair and orderly process for admitting people. Second, we need visa reform. The most effective wall we can build is a visa system that works, that says who's allowed here and who's not, and that makes provision for workers. And third, as for undocumented aliens, the thing that we need to pay attention to is, I think most Americans are in favor of solving this issue. And most of them would support a process for regularizing the path to legal residence and maybe even citizenship if people pay a fine, learn to speak English, have jobs that pay taxes. This is what Americans want, right? People who work and love America and keep their families together.
And as the president of Catholic University of America, how does this issue impact education across the country?
Well, it impacts education because the 800,000 young people who are affected by this most directly are people who have to have had an education, and half of them are in school right now.
And we appreciate your time. We'll have you back on again to talk about this and many other issues. Thank you very much. John Harvey, President of Catholic University of America. Thank you.
Thank you.
And former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer is officially off White House payroll. Yesterday was Spicer's last day. He resigned as press secretary back in July, but kept working, mostly out of the public eye. In a farewell message to coworkers, Spicer says the job was the honor of a lifetime. An invalid and void presidential election. That's the verdict of Kenya's Supreme Court. They call for a new vote in 60 days. The court ruling today declares the results were hacked. The Kenyan president says he disagrees with it, but respects the court. The president is the son of the country's first and has had a long-time rivalry between leading political families. Deadly violence broke out around the country's capital after last month's elections. Pakistan's Senate approves the teaching of the Quran in public schools. The law will require schools to teach the book to Muslim students from elementary to high school. A Vatican news agency reports no alternative programs have been announced for Christian students. Muslims celebrate their festival of sacrifice. The holiday honors Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son as the test of his faith. The festival comes amid tight security around the Middle East, including Iraq and Afghanistan. Pope Francis touches down in Colombia next week, the third pope to visit the country. The trip is in part to celebrate a landmark peace deal he encouraged between a guerrilla group and the government. Decades of conflict have left more than 200,000 people dead there. Francis Roca is Vatican correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. He joins us now from Rome. Frank, how could the first Latin American pope's presence in Colombia help the process of reconciliation there?
Well, the Pope goes to Colombia at a delicate time. As you know, last year, the voters of Colombia rejected a peace deal between the government and the FARC guerrillas. Then the Congress approved a slightly amended one, a slightly amended agreement. It still has a lot of opposition in the country. There's still a lot of resistance and skepticism. The Pope wants a peace arrangement. He said so, and clearly some of the gestures and speeches that he gives will be aimed at promoting a reconciliation, even if he won't weigh in on the particulars of that agreement. On Friday in particular, he goes to EWTN, which is a city that has suffered a lot in the fighting over the decades, and he'll be involved in a ceremony, a liturgy really, of reconciliation there.
So do you think these messages, these prayers are going to help transform the country to come about and bring about peace?
Well, I think the challenge for the Pope is to be promoting this idea of reconciliation and peace without seeming too politically aligned. I think if he seemed to be too much invested in the specific project of President Santos and this peace deal, he could alienate some people who might be very skeptical or opposed to it. If he's seen as a general presence encouraging a reconciliation and peace, bringing people together, then I imagine it will have an effect, yes.
And I know there's a unique twist to the schedule of this trip, right? Each day has a different theme. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. On Friday, which I think will be the key day, the theme is reconciliation, although what's interesting is that it's not only reconciliation among Colombians, but also a reconciliation with nature. So in this ceremony where he'll bring together people from both sides of this long civil war they've been having, he'll also be planting a tree, which will symbolize his concern for ecology, which of course is a signature theme for this Pope, who wrote an entire encyclical unequivocal about that. Then on Sunday, another important day, the theme will be human rights. And he goes to Cartagena, the coastal city of Cartagena, where there's a large Afro-Colombian population, many of them very poor, and he'll be celebrating their culture and paying attention to their concerns.
We'll definitely be paying attention to that trip. Thank you very much, Francis Roca, Vatican correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, we'll tell you what Pope Francis's prayer intention is this new month of September. Plus, more legal troubles for pro-life activist David Daleiden.
Las parroquias tienen que estar en contacto con los hogares, con la vida de la gente, con la vida del pueblo.
Pope Francis's prayer intention for September: parishes, may they be animated by a missionary spirit. The Holy Father says the doors of parishes are always open. He prays parishes can continue to serve others in the mission of faith. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. A federal judge fines pro-life activist David Daleiden and his attorneys nearly $200,000. This comes because videos the judge blocked from release appeared on the attorney's website. The videos show the alleged sale of fetal tissue by Planned Parenthood. Daleiden's attorney says he's appealing. And a judge temporarily blocks a new pro-life law in Texas. That means the state can't yet ban what's called dismemberment abortion. The law was set to go into effect today. Courts blocked similar laws in 4 other states. We expect Texas to appeal. Columbus Day controversy. The Los Angeles City Council votes to remove the holiday from the city calendar. Activists say the explorer is a symbol of genocide for Native people in North America. Instead, the second Monday in October will become Indigenous Peoples Day. Columbus Day became a national holiday in 1937 after the request by the Knights of Columbus. And speaking of Christopher Columbus, a stolen copy of a letter Columbus wrote about the New World is headed home to the Vatican. That comes after more than a decade in a private collection in Atlanta. Columbus wrote a letter describing what he'd saw on his first trip to the Americas. A man bought the letter from a rare book dealer in 2004 for nearly $1 million. He didn't know the document was stolen. The U.S. Department of Justice says investigators don't know when the letter was taken, but the Vatican Library realized their copy was a fake. And a first-century marble head, also stolen, goes on display in Rome today. The Cleveland Museum of Art gave it back to Italy after learning the piece was stolen towards the end of World War II. Up next, Stepping Up. A new documentary tells the story of inner-city girls searching for a brighter future. Today, the church remembers St. Giles. Born in Athens, Greece, he spent many years as a hermit. Early Christians considered him one of the 14 holy helpers. Saints known for being really helpful. St. Giles, pray for us. Thanks for watching EWTN News Nightly. I'm Jason Calvi in for Lauren Ashburn. In these trying times, a new documentary offers a story of inspiration and hope. Step follows 3 black high school seniors in Baltimore. The girls compete in a step dance competition, try to get into college, and face challenges common to many African American teens in cities.
Joining us now is Dr. Gracie Christie, Policy Advisor for the Catholic Association. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me again.
You have watched this documentary. Tell us why you think it is worth watching. What's the significance?
So this is a fabulous documentary because it opens a window for us into the world of a group of young people, young women, that too often we consider to be stuck or doomed to repeat sort of the chaos and the disorder in which they've grown up. And the documentary makes clear that this is simply not true, that with the right attention and love and with the right education, that the way forward can be found for these women who deserve it and need it.
The documentary's director is quoted as saying, "She decided to make STEP to inspire other people and show something good in our country." Why is that needed right now?
Again, I think because we tend to maybe write groups of people off and say, you know, that's just never going to get solved. That's never going to get better. But the solutions can be as simple as a kind of school that teaches certain things with the right kind of love and the right kind of attention. And we can't give up. We have to keep going out and making things better.
There are 3 million African American Catholics out of nearly 74 million in the United States. How do you think faith can help achieve goals like the film, the main characters who want to attend college?
Well, faith, our Christian faith teaches virtues that are that are so indispensable to making any kind of progress in our material lives. You know, things like fortitude and perseverance and the nobility of hard work. So these things, of course, will make people rise and progress.
STEP highlights on a broader level when there are resources available. It can help students with responsibility and dedication and form a sense of community.
The most elegant woman on earth, but she stepped hard and with confidence.
And again, you believe that this is most important for underprivileged students.
Well, yes, because you know they're missing sometimes, very often in their lives, things that maybe middle class children take for granted, like a refrigerator that's consistently full, or the care and protection of a father. And so, at school is a wonderful place to put back these goods into children's lives.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gracie Christie, Policy Advisor for the Catholic Association.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks to Lauren Ashburn and Dr. Gracie Christie. And you're not going to want to miss this story. A pregnant mom diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor carried a client, refused cancer treatment to save her unborn child. Her husband speaks with Catherine Zeltner tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
I just asked her, I said, you know, what do you want to do? And she just said, I think it's already clear what we're going to do. There's no way that we're getting rid of the baby.
The client suffered a stroke a few weeks ago and has been unconscious. Doctors say the baby is still healthy. You can see more tonight at 11 Eastern on EWTN. Pro-Life Weekly re-airs Sunday morning at 10. For the whole EWTN News Nightly team, thanks for watching this week. Sunday marks the 4th anniversary of EWTN News Nightly's very first show. Do you remember that? We thank you for being with us 4 years later, and we're looking forward to the future. We'll see you again next week. Good night, and God bless.